Yeah, so then welcome to our meetup tonight. Thanks for coming despite the warm weather. We actually have the usual 50% here of the registrations. So welcome. And today yesterday was this great conference at the Bayerische Landesbank, and the plan for today was to look back at it and have a retrospect on a meta level for us Bitcoiners, right? We will have a discussion later about this, and we also plan to discuss about mining, because it was also a big topic yesterday. Unfortunately, the second speaker, Dan, is not here yet. I hope he will make it. But anyway, we will start with Jörg, who also did a talk yesterday, and I think he will not repeat it, but he will build upon it. But I think for us who already have some knowledge, it will be worthwhile, and we know a bit more than bankers already, right? So I think Jörg can make some shortcuts.
Okay, I hope the audio is good. Yep. My talk yesterday was on the topic of Bitcoin beyond the money as we know it today, because I was expecting or anticipating some heated discussions about how Bitcoin affects different interests of people today, and we were not disappointed by some of the talks yesterday with heated discussions. So the idea of my talk was to go beyond what we have today and maybe look at perspectives that when we look back in 50 years at Bitcoin, we might realize that it wasn't really competing with the use cases of the 20th century money, what we need or what we needed it for, but maybe there's more Bitcoin will enable us what we don't have yet, and what many people not think about, what the potential of Bitcoin is to give to us. So I made a very bold claim in this presentation, and I had to really shortcut all the conclusion how to get there. So my argument in the talk was that the Bitcoin mainnet is invaluable and competitionless to software and AI in the 21st century, and how and I even made the claim that for everybody in the room, that they will probably be indirect Bitcoin users within the next 5 to 10 years, even if they don't hold the token, the money themselves. Just like everybody will probably, or is probably a Linux user now. Is anybody here, or who is not a Linux user in this room? Yeah? Okay. In this crowd, there's no discussion, because in one or the other way, even your Wi-Fi router uses Linux under the hood, or your Amazon Echo device, or whatever. Everybody is who is connected to the internet is an indirect Linux user. But to the crowd yesterday, this was probably kind of a surprise, and I argue that the same will happen with Bitcoin, that even if you don't use it as money, or you don't believe in the money, that you will still be affected by the technology. So how do I get to that? This is something I told people, that there's a million software and internet developers out there on the planet now, and they are not only looking how Bitcoin affects the existing world, the things which were already built, but those people have a lot of crazy unrealized ideas in their head, which already kind of exist, and they are now starting to investigate after Bitcoin existing for 10 years, how they can make use of it. And you will realize that after investigating it, that Bitcoin has quite a few unique non-monetary properties you won't find in any other system. And one thing to highlight is the hash rate of the network. Of course, you don't look at it in linear scale, but in better in exponential scale, because that doesn't swallow so much in information. And you realize that even when it reached the latest technology stage, the ASIC era or the exahash era, it was growing 3 orders of magnitude alone in the last 5 years from petahash to exahash. And so I guess for everybody here, you have kind of an idea what exahash means, yeah? But for the crowd yesterday, I came up with an analogy, and I choose this. This is exahash, yeah? 50 exahash, the biggest swarm of fish you will be able to find in the ocean. And in comparison, this is blockchain, more specifically this is the underlying technology of a fish swarm, yeah? But this is Bitcoin, the pure network size, and yeah, you can build many different blockchains, yeah? But this is Bitcoin, so that you get an idea how big this thing is, and that, yes, it contains some blockchain technology, but that's not the point, yeah? What people look at, it's the network hash rate, and you will realize that it leads to a very stable system configuration. Yeah, it doesn't matter if a few fish come and go every day. This thing is really hard to kill. There's no leader fish you can kill, and they don't have a board of steering fish with elections who decide on the direction of the swarm for the next years. So for developers, this is quite clear. And it's a lot cheaper than being out there alone with your little blockchain network. So let's call it a 50 exahash per second commitment monster, yeah, what we have. And it exists. So what are potential use cases? And if you look into the blockchain, you will realize that it not only, this network, these 50 exahash per second, not only commit to the transactions in the body, that there's no double spend, no money created within transactions and so on, but the 50 exahash per second commit to the full block. This is including the header as well, and you realize there's, among other fields, there's the time, and you realize that these 50 exahash per second are committing to the current time and have been consistently doing so for the last 10 years, yeah? There was never a block where the time was way off, where the block claimed to be from 2043 or from 1819 or whatever. So maybe that's one of the reasons why the creators mentioned, not in the white paper, but later in a forum post, I think, the term time chain, that in the chain tip, you have kind of an idea what time is it now. And you might say that, yeah, it would be a really wasteful clock if this was the original purpose, but it's an emerging property, yeah? And maybe we can make use of this now, that we have kind of the Big Bang of the internet, yeah, which is the most secure clock mankind ever built. And it's not super accurate down to the second, because you don't know when you receive the block and how much time has passed in that. But when you look, or when people looked at that time at the Big Bang, they also didn't know when exactly the watch hand will move to the next minute, yeah. They knew probably it will move in the next minute, and that's the same with the Bitcoin blockchain. When you look at the chain tip, probably within the next 10 minutes it will advance, yeah? And this thing was very hard to attack at this time, and probably there were discussions at this time as well if it's worth the effort and the energy to build this thing, yeah? But it allowed, with other technologies like SpyClass, it allowed people to synchronize even over great distances. So when you think, okay, but today we have access to time everywhere, yeah, on our wrists, on our screens, even in our pockets, and these devices synchronize via the network time protocol. But time is so important for us humans and the software we build that almost every computer program needs, at a certain point in the instruction, in the execution, you need access to time. So, can I ask who is a software developer here? Okay, so there is this system call, system get date or whatever. You probably need 95% of writing software. Yeah? Anybody disagrees that you can probably write software without access to the current date or time at any point in time? Maybe a few, but very often you need it. And it's so important that most of the computers even have a backup, power source just to keep the clock running while the computer is switched off. So it's a really important component of software. But the problem is software is not like us humans, which can have other sources to do a reality check. When you ask me what time is it now, and I look at my watch and say, yeah, it's 6:05 in the morning, then you will immediately know that's not true. Just look outside of the window, then nobody would believe me, because we humans have an inner clock and we have multiple senses, ears, eyes, to check time. But software is like blind, sitting in a remote system it cannot trust, and it has to just accept whatever time the operating system is providing the software with. But with the Bitcoin blockchain and the block time, we have the opportunity now that software can start reasoning about time. I'm not talking about that we replace the local system clock completely with the block time, but software can start reasoning now. So if the skew is just maybe 5 minutes, that's okay, because that's usually the case, that you have a skew of 5 minutes or even 20 minutes. But 6 hours or 12 hours, that would be really unusual, because it never really happened in the last 10 years that there wasn't a new block within the last 12 hours. So this allows us to build safer software, which is not, I mean, we have the network time protocol, but it's also facing the Byzantine generalist problems or man-in-the-middle attack when there are SSL attacks, that you could quite easily, that's the problem, that these local clocks are quite easily to attack. But the Bitcoin blockchain is very hard to attack and put another time in a block there. It would be rejected by the network. So if you have a software which does monthly, no?
Because the time is not consensus critical, and you can play with it, so it's maybe accurate for 2 hours or so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, you're saying just that you won't get no blocks for, let's say, 6 hours, but that might be true, but you can even manipulate the time field. It's not consensus critical.
But
there's a limit. Yes,
yeah. So try to put a block which claims from the future, from 5 years in the future. It would be,
not possible. So
yeah,
a few hours is possible.
a few hours, right? But imagine you have a software which does automatic payouts at the end of the month. If an attacker can attack the local clock and advance it very quickly, the software will be stupid because it trusts the local clock and does the payout. But if you, in addition, check with the Bitcoin blockchain, then the software could stop and say, there's something is wrong. I don't know what. Maybe the Bitcoin blockchain is not generating blocks anymore. But this hasn't been really the case for the last 10 years, so it's very unlikely. Probably your system is under attack. I stopped working. So we could eventually make use of this for security critical applications. An example what everybody uses is the HTTPS protocol, which validates security certificates based on the current time. So you could interfere with this by playing back the clock to a date in the past where an old security certificate was still valid and the private key maybe had leaked. So you could trick certain users maybe into accepting your fake server. And so I just want to demonstrate that there might be more to the Bitcoin blockchain than just for payments and transactions, and that that this 50 exahash per second network is also committing to the current time. And
for students, no more using a week test license for months. I mean, if you have expensive software and you get a 1 week test license, so I know a lot of students who use the
yeah.
setting back the
How often did somebody set back the date just to use Microsoft Office, for instance? Yeah. What? Okay, so I'm not talking about replacing, but maybe thinking about using the block time as an additional source for software to kind of do a reality check. There's more properties, so it could be used as a clock. I think many people don't argue so much anymore that Bitcoin is the most secure data store we have in the world, and it requires some Bitcoin dust. Yeah? So you can write to it the op return field and transactions. The clock is for free. Yeah? Anybody can use it. And there are more advanced protocols developed on top of this already, of these two properties. Timestamping, something like auxiliary proof of work, where you can import the security of this 50 exahash per second network into other blockchains or databases. There are ideas of using the Bitcoin network for signaling, like proof of reverse, or that you're pledging or promising something. And you can even think that the Bitcoin network acts kind of as an energy storage. So if you have access to abundant energy somewhere very remotely in a desert or maybe on another planet or whatever, you could turn that energy into information, send it at the speed of light to where it's needed, and convert it back into energy at the local energy provider there. So it kind of, if you look at it, acts like a battery, which can be charged and can be discharged again for certain considerations. Regarding the timestamping, this is a transaction we did on January 3rd this year when Vitus Seller, many people know him, did his tour to Satoshi, and we made a donation and we used the op return field to leave a message for him. So, and what you realize that here you have the timestamp when this was done, that this could not be faked by us now. So if I would claim we did a donation on this date, I couldn't fake it anymore now, because I had to do it on that date and now this 50 exahash per second network is committing to this data, and not only for the next block, but from now on forever. Yeah? It's forever now that I paid a little fee of 225 Satoshis to import the security of the Bitcoin blockchain into my use case. Yeah? And this was a very little fee, and from now on it's committing for my purpose. Yeah? Of course, it would be very inefficient if everybody did this on his own. Yeah? Timestamping directly with transactions, because then we would quickly run into the transaction limit. And therefore, there's an open standard developed by Peter Todd. I don't know if you heard of this, the open timestamp standard, which is really nice because it scales indefinitely. Yeah? We could timestamp all the data we as a species generate, and it almost costs nothing because calendar servers aggregate all the users who want to timestamp at the same time. And yeah, here's a use case where this could be used in the industry. Every car maker in Germany has to create car records for the built car. That there are certain construction parameters, for instance, the torque that was used to the axles. And it has to be recorded, and it has to be kept tamper resistant for 30 years. So just in case there's a liability issues or for research purposes, vendors or car makers are required to keep that for 30 years. And of course, there's a significant amount of cost in the collection of the data, but it's a couple of million per year per car maker or per factory just to hand over these data records at the end of the week to a trusted third party, which does nothing more than looking at their watch, signing the data, and making sure they keep it, in addition, safe in their safes or whatever. But today you could switch to replicating the data to Dropbox, AWS, whatever, and just timestamp it for nothing on the Bitcoin blockchain. So there's significant cost improvements. Yeah, and yeah, this was just an example that not only a few developers are realizing this now, but big companies like Microsoft realize that it doesn't make sense to build your own blockchain for every use case if you have this 50 exahash per second network, which nobody can build a second one. Yeah, and it doesn't make sense to even try it, and that's why it's a smart conclusion. And this was in last month that Microsoft announced their new decentralized identity management tool will be built on top of the Bitcoin blockchain.
A question regarding this timestamping proposal you make for the car dealers. Do you know of any standards already that exist for writing information to the Bitcoin blockchain?
This timestamping proof standard and no, it doesn't matter because you don't write the data. You just write the hash into the. So you are required to keep care that you have a copy of the original data. That's your responsibility. Yeah? But the proof that this copy hasn't been tampered with, this exists forever in the Bitcoin blockchain. And this timestamping prover, I think there are 4 or 5 calendar servers running, and they are running based on donations. So you don't even need to set up your own servers because there's already, I could not scroll down here, a lot of companies supporting these open timestamps and with donations. But it's so scalable that we could timestamp any data created immediately, always against the Bitcoin blockchain. Okay, so, and that led me to the conclusion that in one or the other way, any software will start making use of the Bitcoin mainnet to enhance the security for its users. And it might be your favorite app or your web browser to make the SSL validation more secure, or probably even that the Bitcoin doesn't need to be a full node, but something like a pruning light node, which is directly merged as a kernel module into the Linux kernel, just to make the system call for the local time safer, that not every software has to do it and import the Bitcoin library on their own, but that you have a more trustworthy operating system which informs the user, hey, something is wrong with the clock, or probably wrong. Please have a look. Yeah? So, and if that happens, if somebody would implement it for the Linux kernel, for instance, then probably suddenly everybody would be an indirect user of the Bitcoin mainnet in one or the other way. So it's not that bold, that statement, that it's never going to happen. Yeah? There's quite some potential here, and maybe it's not as unlikely as you think on first thought. Yeah, and the second thing I highlighted, which is built on top of this 50 exahash per second network, it's the Lightning network. Yeah, we didn't build it on some other shitcoin, but we wanted it on the most secure blockchain we have, and that's what I made. That's what I said yesterday. That actually, if you are within this group of internet and software developers, you probably have an idea how the internet develops, and I don't think that many people question that this is already the case, that the internet kind of decided already for Bitcoin as its native money. It's not seen everywhere yet, so we will probably see the rollout of this when Lightning continues to succeed because it's not done yet. There are still issues, as many were discussed last weekend. But if this continues to succeed, then you could say the deciding moment when the internet made its decision for Bitcoin as a native money was back in August 2016, when the transaction malleability fix was activated on the mainnet, which allowed Lightning to work. And this leads us to very nice or interesting distinct properties of Lightning applications. And first, that they are transnational. And this is important because now when you start developing applications for Lightning, you have the market entry costs only once, because you develop for a transnational audience. You don't have to open offices and businesses in 178 countries just to interact with the people there. No, you can target for a transnational market and receive a transnational money in return. So it saves you a lot on the market entry costs. Second, Lightning applications are contractless, which actually I had some slides for it. Maybe they're coming. Which, if you look at this example I will show next, that typically today you sign up a contract, or at least agree to some terms and conditions, which nobody reads anyway, and you give away either at least your private data, or you give them your credit card number, and then you have the contract sealed by a single or multiple payments. But if you look at the current Lightning apps which are developed, this is not needed anymore. So as a company or as a developer, you can save a significant cost of development that you don't have to deal with. How do we do user registration this time and login? And if the user changes his phone number and all that management required just with having correct data, because for the payment purpose, you need to have correct data in case you have to go to court and fight over who gets how much money. But with Lightning applications, you can completely cut this complexity and save on the cost there, which is significant.
How do you define permissions if there's no registration?
We see an example. You can generate like permission tokens or authentication tokens. So in case you store some state, this is possible, but not necessarily every Lightning application just to make a business interaction with the user has to have all these user registration and login, which brings down the development time and the cost significantly. And the third thing is the near zero fees, which we don't have it yet. There's still some work to do, but if we get to streaming money, who knows about the HTTP 402 error code? HTTP 402. Payment required. You know since when it's in the protocol? I think it was in 1991 or 92. Yeah? So I built my first website in 1996. It was 4 years before I even had a modem. This error code was already in the HTTP protocol. So the internet is really waiting for this for almost 30 years now. Yeah? That data and money travel on the same network, and not data comes on one network and then payments or money is always on a separate network. So the nice thing about Lightning payments is that you can, I use the example, you rent a movie on Amazon Prime. Yeah? You pay upfront €4 via a separate network, either credit card or PayPal or whatever. And if you don't like the movie after 10 minutes, you still paid the full €4. And probably nobody would fight with Amazon for this thing. And but with streaming money, you can cut the single transaction into so many thousands, even 10,000 small Lightning transactions that you can start paying per byte or per second or whatever. And this is mind-bending. We never had something like this. This allows completely new use cases. Yeah? That you have a stream of money in the one direction and the stream of data in the other direction on the same network. And so how will probably this is my argument that Lightning will completely turn the internet upside down or turn it inside out. Yeah? The first thing Lightning will disrupt is the internet itself before we see it on the streets used by merchants, because here it's a lot easier to implement. And this is not science fiction anymore. Launch operations for SpaceX and OneWeb and SpaceX, they started this year or at the end of last year already, I think, for OneWeb. So within the next 3 years, we will have full broadband satellite everywhere on the planet. Yeah? There won't be a single spot on the planet where you don't have high-speed broadband internet, and there are 3 companies competing for this race already. And the smartest thing you can do if you build up this billion-dollar infrastructure is to not send sales team to all the countries, open offices there and collect their local fiat money or whatever, but instead, if you have a network which allows Bitcoin to travel on, then the smartest thing is to ask for connectivity on a pay-per-call basis directly from the users, and don't care about how they manage to get their money. But 4 billion people don't have high-speed internet, and they will find ways to get Bitcoin and set up Lightning channels to finally be connected to the rest of the world. So this will lead to a world where you don't even have subscriptions with individual internet service providers anymore, but you will have smart devices with a budget. Maybe you say, okay, I want to spend €2 a day on internet connectivity. And then, like, these devices have power management already to make efficient use of the battery. They will just negotiate with the environment if right now your neighbor's Wi-Fi or the 5G network or the satellite network is the best available option for that minute. And when you walk and move somewhere, maybe another connection will be the best thing. But you won't have subscriptions anymore with internet service providers. Yeah? You want a device which manages this complexity and just be as efficient as possible, and not reading terms and conditions and having to think, oh, in 3 months I have to cancel my subscription because there's a new internet provider now which is even cheaper or has better properties whatsoever. And
Thank you very much. How do you think the regulators will like this? Because, for example, in Germany, you're not allowed to have a cell phone which is not registered.
yeah, then you have to build a big aluminium sphere over your country to stop these from providing transnational services. Yeah, maybe they don't like it, but what will they want to do about it?
Yesterday, read in the newspaper that the 5G network,
Okay, the question for the stream was how regulators will like this or not. Probably that's not the point of my talk. Maybe we can have a separate. I have no idea how they could even stop it. Yeah, and yeah.
Even if it's not the point of your talk, I totally appreciate it and like your examples. Do you have any idea how the big disadvantages for the service provider that they don't have the credentials? So you have an opinion on that one, a real quick one, or for discussion later?
Yeah, you have to survive in this market. You have to provide a good service, and it will be more like everybody will be a Vodafone user. Everybody will be a telecom user for at least 5 minutes in their life. Yeah? Because you move through this world and you might come in an area where there is no Vodafone but telecom, and your device will automatically select this, yeah? But without a contract. And this is probably like everybody will be, if services, not only for connectivity, but even if services like Netflix survive, then everybody will be a Netflix user, because you just receive a link from a friend of yours, which is at minute 23 in a movie, and he wants to tell you something. You click on play, and your wallet keeps paying a few satoshis to keep the stream coming. And if you got the message, what he wanted to say after 3 minutes, then you press stop, and it stops paying. So if you don't have the registration barrier anymore, every company can profit from that. They can easily ramp up billions of people. Yeah? And that's what's happening. In 10 years, we will have 7 billion people online. And how do you want to ramp them up, not only to the internet to be connected, but to all these services, if there is this long step in between to sign up and agree to terms and conditions and wait for the payment and so on. So that's the easiest way you can scale the internet to billions of people by just requiring a payment or a stream of money for a stream of data in return. So here's the example, because this is not, I want to make clear that this is in the works. Blockstream satellite, you can consider them transnational global service already. There's a little gap here in between Asia and Europe, but it's not a highly populated area, and probably they will close it one day. And anybody can go to their website, click on transmissions, broadcast a transmission, upload a file, could be a PDF or HTML file or an image or a short audio, voice message, whatever. Upload it, then you bid for a price, just in case there's high demand and your broadcast is not immediately queued, then the highest paying bids, they are getting priority. Here you see the total sum. This is an example, it's 26.7 Satoshis. Here you get an authentication code. This was, I think, your question. It's automatically generated in case you want to update your bid or delete your broadcast. Yeah? So no registration required until this point. And then you get the Lightning invoice. You pay for it. Here, 26 Satoshis with fiat money. This is a use case we could not had before. Yeah? Because you would have to do it for free, but it's not for free. It's 26 Satoshi. And the moment you pay, the Blockstream satellite service is broadcasting what you queued, without even asking who you are. It's just a transnational service, plain and simple and easy. And yes, probably regulators will have, but they are not the developers of the internet. They should better learn coding if they want to have a say on where the internet moves or develops. So not only to these non-monetary properties, which result from the data storage possibilities and the time possibilities. And this is what happened last weekend here in Munich, that hundreds and thousands of developers are looking into Lightning and streaming money now, and which new use cases and eventually which existing use cases can be done with this. So, which led me to the conclusion that, or my summary yesterday was that it's not blockchain technology which makes this thing work and all this possible. It's sound money technology. Yeah? If Bitcoin wasn't sound money, nobody probably would in this project or had that interest. Yeah? So I never saw this term before. At least I don't know. So I think it makes sense. Yeah? If people think we have a problem with this blockchain nonsense, then you can start spreading the word that we are not into blockchain, but into sound money technology, and which was a nice fit for the conference yesterday. So what this allows us is that if you are a Bitcoiner, or at least think like a Bitcoiner, then you have to realize that we are facing huge global planetary problems ahead of us as a species. Yeah? I'm not talking about people individual, but how we as a species approach currently problems is not like an agile fish swarm like we see here in the picture. Yeah? A fish swarm, when it sees a threat, it immediately splits up, changes direction, and reconverges. But for most of the decisions regarding global challenges, we are more like big sluggish oil tankers right now, which are heading straight into a collision a few years in the future. But we usually sit down and talk for months, instead of acting like a fish swarm immediately. And in that process, usually somebody screams, "We need another captain," and then we facilitate elections for more months. And even if at the end of this process, the unbelievable magic wonder happens and we find the best person for that job and give him all the money and power to do something, and it's probably too late, like in this picture in 2015, where this captain, or not even these two captains together, could have done anything to avoid the disaster resulting from that. Because at this point in the story, the end result was already dictated by the laws of physics. Yeah? The captain was out of the game already at this time. But people are jumping their ships now. Yeah? So they realize this, and maybe it's time for a change. And those who jump, they have two powerful technologies now, which is the internet on one hand, where we will have everybody connected within the next 10 years, and where ideas and knowledge travel at the speed of light. Yeah? Ideas can go viral now within days or even hours. And on the other hand, we have money now, sound money, which travels at the same speed on the same network. And this might allow us to tackle global problems completely differently, because because we can move capital and money quickly to the best ideas, or at least to the most promising ideas. And I compare this to careful gardening of millions of self-sovereign individuals who still hold the water hoses in their hand, and whenever a new idea pops up on the internet and they like it, they can start sending just a few satoshis there in the direction. Many people do the same because they think this is an idea which is worthwhile considering, and these ideas spread in seconds, not in seconds, but in days now, then the good ideas will immediately receive enough watering so they can start growing and attract more people and start working. Whereas bad ideas, or even good ideas which are executed by the wrong team, they will quickly dry up because people have 24/7 full control over the water hoses. So I'm not talking this will solve all the problems, yeah? But for global problems where it's really slow right now, this could be a different approach and lead us into something we can see here in the picture, this swarm intelligence or crowd intelligence. Yeah? Sound money has the potential to unlock this, because we don't not only see this in fish, but also in birds and insects, which can quickly react to changes as a swarm. Yeah? And it could be that in 100 years from now, to an outsider, mankind would look like this. Yeah? Whenever a global problem pops up, immediate action. And sound money is the binding technology which keeps the swarm together, because we don't want a dictator who tells everybody what to do, but we need a bonding technology. And sound money defines what we can't have everything at the same time. Yeah? But sound money allows us to find out dynamically what we can have and what we can't have, and what we should focus on now and what not, and how much we want to save for the future in case it gets worse, and how much we want to invest for the future now to build the future. So it's a very promising technology for us as a species, and probably not the money many people have in mind when they think about money today. And that Bitcoin might not even replace the money they think it is, because this could be a lot more important. Yeah? But it's not guaranteed. It's still an experiment, just like humanity, I would say. Okay.
Any other questions? Questions? Okay. Yeah, thanks, Jörg, for the great talk. And of course, I also want to thank our hosts tonight, Blockchain Consulting, which is one of the largest companies actually in the space. And yeah, and Philip is working there, and he will tell us about the mining operations they're doing, and the ideas that we come into conversation with him there then about everything you want to know about Bitcoin mining and the issues and what's with the environment and all the stuff you read in the media about it. And yeah, you can ask him everything then, I guess. So, Philip.
Thanks a lot. 10 minutes break before we continue for the next 2 hours.
I wish I had 2 hours of material, actually. Do we do a break or not? Who does not want a break?
How long does it take?
10 minutes. 7 minutes, between 5 and 10. Yeah, let's do that, let's do that. Sollen wir die Aufnahme pausieren oder so? Was denn? Nee, kann man ja nicht pausieren. Wollen wir weitermachen? All right, hi everyone, also from my side, and yeah, thanks for Michi for the quick introduction. So yeah, this is Blockchain Consulting. It's our second office. We have another one at in the main Fußgängerzone over there. But here we have a bit more space, so we'd rather host these events over here. It's always great to have everyone here. This is going to be a bit of an improvisation because actually I don't have any speech. I was just going to say hi to everyone and introduce ourselves and our company a little bit. And then also later we were going to have a bit of a panel discussion about different topics about mining, which is quite a hot topic right now. But it looks like we'll just change the format a bit. We'll see how it goes. And I'm happy for any questions anytime about any of the topics regarding mining or otherwise, or about the company or something. And yeah, we'll just talk for a bit. It sounds fine to me. So we're Genesis Mining. We're a cloud mining company. Who's heard of Genesis Mining? Huh?
What's the question, heard or used?
Heard. Okay, who's used? Okay, wow. Yeah, so I'll make it quite short because it seems like 75% have already at least heard about it. So cloud mining is the idea where we build big data centers. We can lower costs through economic of scale. We have our worldwide infrastructure. We can find the good spots for mining and build our data centers there like through connections to the hardware manufacturers and to well, basically economics of scale in all regards. We can lower costs and make good mining conditions, better than in most places in the world for mining, like especially Germany, let's say. And we provide this, we generate all this hash rate or this hash power for Bitcoin and also all the important altcoins. And we allow our customers to rent hash rate from us on the website. And then every day we pay out the coins that were generated with the amount of hash rate that was rented. It's quite simple, actually. It's like just a hardware rental service.
Pay out the coins that were mined, so in that, I don't know, if somebody mines some strange altcoin, he gets this altcoin or he gets Bitcoin?
Right, if the strange altcoin is supported by us. So we only allow mining coins which are like part of our list of supported coins. And then let's say you buy, I don't know, 100 mega hashes per second of Ethereum for 1 year, let's say. And then you do this contract, you pay. And then every day you can see how much should I have earned, like how much Ethereum should I mine with 100 mega hash in this day. And this is what you will receive on your private wallet every day. You get a daily payout. So the idea is actually quite simple. And we're kind of a more low-level service for this. It's like an all-inclusive solution, right? You just pay one time and you just get the coins, as if you were doing all the mining stuff yourself, but without all the hassle. But I don't want to talk about the company too much because I think it's a bit boring. I think what's much more interesting is how the mining space and how the industry around mining has really changed in the last, well, 10 years, right? It's really been completely transformed actually several times. There have been several stops how it's changed. And recently, big debates have started, let's say in the last 12 months or so, about what maybe is a problem with this. Like we're talking about centralization of mining to large mining hubs. We're talking about home miners being pushed out of the market by big players. We're talking about China or other countries maybe like banning mining, or maybe even worse, to take miners and force them to cooperate with the government. About possible 51% collusion attacks between large mining pools, which is separately from the large miners' centralization risk. And we're also talking about trying to provide ASIC resistance, how it's called, for new mining algorithms, for new coins and also for existing coins, to stop ASIC manufacturers being, ASIC manufacturers, to stop them completely and try to go back to GPUs. And these are topics that are thrown around a lot. And I think on Twitter and on Reddit and so on, the discussions very quickly get quite nasty. People have been pushed out of the development community. I think especially in Ethereum, this has really happened. Really good people who've been contributing a lot have just said, all right, I'm done with this. I'm getting death threats to my personal address in letter form. I'm just not doing it anymore. I'm just a software developer. And they leave, and who can blame them, right? And I really think that there's that this discussion should be held on a more professional level. And my main feeling about it is that most of these issues that are coming and these big fights that are happening, mostly not because of different philosophies, but of just wrong understandings of the different points of view. On the one hand, we have the software developers who are more interested in cryptography, in trustless networks, in this whole decentralization aspect, and these kind of protocol level work. This is what they're really good at, and this is what we really value the core developers of Bitcoin and other coins for. On the other hand, we've got the industry, which is taking this as a base and then is trying to build something on top of it. And this is not just software developers trying to build the next internet, like we heard in the previous talk. But this is also the mining companies, which are going out there using the proof of work algorithm to try to make some money, which is exactly what they should be doing, by the way. Right? The whole idea of mining is that it's several independent parties which are completely selfish, just doing what's the best for them, but still, through the emergent properties of the network and through the trustlessness of it and through like game theoretical mechanics, still we're managing to get a proper, secure network. And this is actually the magic that Bitcoin builds, right? And coming back to the point again, this is all about miners being as selfish as possible. But at the same time, now we've got a big community backlash, let's say, against selfish miners, trying to build bigger data centers, trying to lower their costs, trying to outcompete others, and calling it bad behavior. So I think there's a kind of a philosophical mismatch maybe in that people maybe should understand better that this is exactly the functions that the miners should be taking. And we should not try to, through hate wars on Twitter, try to stop this from happening. It's not going to stop anyway. But try to understand what are the mechanics behind it and how to live with it and how to pull the technology and the community in a direction to understand these things and to live with it and make it part of the core understanding of Bitcoin. So, I mean, I think one of the big topics, I just touched on several points, but I'll just go in one direction. The discussion about trust, about ASIC resistance. This has been a really big one, and it's still a very big discussion currently in the hardware community and in the developer community. And it's interesting. There's developers out there, so I'll backpedal a bit just to make sure everyone's on the same page. The idea is that you are designing an algorithm that miners have to mine that is not easy or not possible to implement on an ASIC machine, so on an application-specific chip. The idea is that you can use, you should use graphic cards for mining, which are commonly available like a commodity, and which can also do other tasks like gaming or stuff like this. And people can buy them at home, and it's less of a risky investment because they have a residual value after you buy them and you stop mining with them. So the mining community used to be only mining on GPUs in 2012 into 13 or something. And then the ASICs took over. And then the only way to compete now in the mining network is to buy these specialized machines and mine Bitcoin with it. And people are saying that this is a really bad development because the argument is that there's usually only a couple of ASIC developers that develop these new chips. They have monopolies, they mine themselves at lower cost because they don't, they sell them for profit, or they just mine at the lowest cost themselves. And this is actually disrupting the ecosystem and more centralizing it and causing these monopoly problems. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to develop algorithms that just push away these ASICs, that don't make it profitable to develop an ASIC. The most prominent one of this is obviously ProgPoW, the proof of work scheme proposed for Ethereum to switch to. ProgPoW says that it's designed in such a way that it runs on a graphics card, on a GPU, and it uses all the special features that GPUs have. It uses them all. So if you wanted to build a specific chip, which would be better, which could mine ProgPoW, then you would have to build a GPU yourself. And that's kind of infeasible, or you build a GPU anyway, which everyone likes. So that's why it's so ASIC resistant. And it's a great argument, isn't it? It's really nice. Unfortunately, it doesn't work quite that easily, partly because different GPUs have different types of capabilities. So you can't use all the capabilities, or nothing would work on them again. So you have to actually use only the common denominator capabilities of a GPU that all the different manufacturers, so basically AMD and NVIDIA, and let's see about Intel, that they all implement. And if you're only using these core functionalities, then again, we're very quickly again at a state where it actually is cheaper again to build a specialized ASIC that only has these capabilities and that doesn't need to be a full GPU at all. So we'll see how that goes with Ethereum. They will probably switch to ProgPoW in, well, let's see, they've pushed it forward a couple of times, but let's say maybe even in this year. And the community is going to be quite happy with this because it will be seen as an attempt to fork away the existing ASICs, which will be successful, and also to deter development on any new ASICs. Because basically they're saying, all right, if there's more ASICs joining the network, we'll just change the algorithm again, and you'll lose your investment, so don't even start, they're basically saying. Interesting how this is going to go with Ethereum, we'll see. Luckily, we already have an example of where it was already tried. This was with Monero. Monero used to be a coin which was known to be CPU mined, actually. CPU mining on Monero was surprisingly competitive with GPU. Still, at some point it was GPU, people were still happy. Then it went to ASIC. So people developed specialized chips for it. People were quite unhappy with this. And what the developers did is they forked the mining algorithm from Monero and they changed to a different one, destroying the value of all the existing ASICs. This worked. And then they said, all right, just like I described for Ethereum, all right, if someone builds ASICs again, we'll just fork again. And actually, to prevent secret mining, so people developing ASICs and mining in secret without telling anyone, we're just going to fork anyway every 6 months. So that's actually quite brutal, right? Developing an ASIC costs millions of dollars. It takes many months of development. It needs lots of contacts and supply chain and building the whole damn device and putting it in. It's a long process. And it should usually take like a year, 9 months or a year, they thought. And so they did this fork. And 4 months later, they saw that the hash rate suddenly tripled. So someone was building an ASIC again. And so they hard forked again. And then actually it happened again. Again, 4 months later, there were again ASICs on the network. They had to hard fork again. So actually they did 3 hard forks in 12 months, changing the algorithm a little bit every time so the previous ASICs would be destroyed. And it didn't seem to deter people building ASICs. So apparently they underestimated the timeline, how quickly people can build an ASIC, and how quickly they calculate they can reimburse their cost for making the ASIC. So the situation with Monero is also unclear. What are they going to do? There's big discussions right now on like GitHub or somewhere where they discuss. I read it somewhere. And I'm not sure. They're saying, oh, we should use this other algorithm. It's definitely going to work this time. It's definitely not going to be ASIC mined again. Other people are saying, all right, the experiment failed. Let's just keep it as it is. Doesn't matter. Other people are saying the even more radical approach, saying, all right, this failed. Let's go to a mining algorithm, which is the easiest possible to implement. Something so stupid that everyone can build an ASIC for it. This will make the ASIC market more competitive. There'll be more players in the market. And we'll actually have more companies competing, and we'll have a healthy ecosystem. Let's see who wins that one. I'm also not sure. Zcash. Sorry. That's exactly what happened to Bitcoin, yeah. Yeah, basically, I completely agree. I think what I would say, and I think this is quite clear, is that any algorithm can be ASIC mined. Cheaper than it can be GPU mined. So when you bring out a new algorithm, it'll be first implemented on GPUs, because it's just quicker to write the code. Then the ASICs will come, and it'll probably be one company that has them first. These will have a massive advantage, sell all the machines, self-mine, do all that evil stuff that people talk about. And it's horrible, it's true. It pushes out the home miners, it centralizes the ecosystem. The company could be evil and do evil things, it's all true. But then what happens is another company also gets an ASIC, or someone has a more efficient one, and then there's a race happening. And this is exactly what we saw with Bitcoin. And
that's exactly where we are with GPUs. There's only 2 GPU vendors. I don't understand
exactly.
why we want to move to GPUs. Some people think it's more decentralized, but why is it more decentralized? There's only 2 different GPU vendors.
Yeah.
They're racing with each other. Probably
Yeah.
we already have better situation in Bitcoin. I mean, how many vendors do we have right now who have competing Bitcoin chips? I think it's probably more than 2.
Yeah, it's like 4 or 5 or something that are serious. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's interesting that you're saying this, it's true. There's only NVIDIA and AMD. There might be Intel soon, they bring out a graphics card, doesn't matter. There's 2 right now. Basically, the whole idea of saying that GPU is not a monopoly and market manipulation and blah, 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 is based on the 100% trust that NVIDIA and AMD are not mining for themselves. And, I mean, I don't think they are, but they could quite easily, and they'd be cheaper than all the others. Then all the same arguments that apply to ASICs now, which are kind of true, would also apply to GPUs. Yeah.
They don't need to mine for themselves. They just need to sell that. They need to make their chips unable to be used for games and sell them a lot cheaper to miners. And
exactly. Actually, this is partly already happening. NVIDIA and also AMD have brought out graphics cards specifically for mining with cut down cost, but also cut down capabilities, where they're not so great for gaming anymore and for all these other great use cases that people think of GPUs, like machine learning, rendering, cloud, computation, something. They've cut down this so it's not really possible and sell them as mining GPUs. So basically you're buying something which is called a GPU but doesn't have all the benefits. It's cheaper than a normal GPU, just like an ASIC. It doesn't have so much resale value. If you would sell it, then no one else would buy it, right? So it doesn't have the same resale value. It doesn't have alternative use cases. Basically, they're now producing what the community calls an ASIC. So
who knows whether they start mining, because they have these rendering farms, the AI farms, and mining would be a great idle job, right? If there's nothing to render right now.
yes, absolutely. And they do that. They do that. And if there's something like Amazon AWS, then as soon as the Bitcoin price does something crazy, then everyone rents their machines instantly and starts mining through the cloud, through the Amazon cloud, which is very expensive, but people have done it. They just buy up all the hash rate overnight. Right? They write a bot that creates 100 accounts, gets the maximum that you can get per account. Yeah, so I don't know. This is a very big topic currently. Just a second. There's a very big topic currently in all kinds of altcoin communities. In Bitcoin, it's just being ignored. People don't like changing anything about Bitcoin. In this case, it might be nice, well, it's saving people some stress. But Ethereum, Zcash, Monero, I'm probably missing one or two, Grin, Beam. Oh,
Bitcoin was one of the first, right?
yeah. Oh, let's. I won't go. I won't talk about Zia Coin. They did something very special. Yeah.
I think the nice thing with ASICs is that it reduces the uncertainty variables for everybody in the game a lot. Because it pushes just to what's possible within the technology, and not maybe what it could be that the developer team have an hidden knowledge on what will be the next, and that they make a decision where everybody thinks, okay, this is ASIC resistant now, but they had advanced information already that they made the decision, and then we didn't know. Yeah? So
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is exactly what can happen if you're changing the mining algorithm randomly every couple of months, like Monero is doing. Then suddenly you've got a small group of privileged people who are making this decision, so they know the decision before they make it public. Exactly. So if the whole idea of Bitcoin is that everyone's an admin, everyone has the same rights, and then suddenly, for a global network, you have a privileged group of people that know what's going to happen in the future, it's fishy. And then how, also if you have that already happening, which is already bad, how are you going to have competing developer teams competing to add things to the protocol, right? You're adding centralization. You're just moving it from the ASIC manufacturers to the code manufacturers. Don't want to argue if that makes sense or not, because we'll never find an agreement, but still it's not obviously removing centralization. Yeah, so that's a really big debate right now. I'm following it quite closely and making a lot of thoughts about it. But okay, yeah.
What are the thoughts about companies like NiceHash? Because there you also have the centralization with GPU mining.
You know what? I love NiceHash. I think it's awesome. Because the thing with the GPUs is they're general. They can do all the different altcoins. So basically, you have to take the sum of all GPUs together and compare that to the maximum hash rate of a current coin to see if it's 51% attackable or not. With Bitcoin, it's quite simple because all the Bitcoin mining hardware usually always mines Bitcoin, so the calculation is easy. But if, let's say, Ethereum has 100 gigahash or whatever, 100 terahash, but actually all GPUs in existence could be mining, I don't know, 100 times that, then you just know that a large enough portion of people around the world would have to just choose to attack Ethereum, and they could. There's enough hardware there. With Bitcoin, you would have to produce more hardware in order to attack it. That's another argument. Is that the line of thinking you were having?
Yeah, I just want to validate the thoughts he did on that.
Yeah. Well, NiceHash is interesting. In a way, we could see, like Genesis Mining could see NiceHash as a competitor, right? Because they're also a hash rate cloud provider. You go there, you buy hash rate, and then you get the results. The only thing that NiceHash extra, you can choose your pool where it goes to. So you can choose where the hash rate goes.
It's more like a marketplace.
Right, exactly, yeah. So we're a bit more abstracted away. NiceHash is a bit more down to the metal.
And I
But yeah.
think 51% attacks are not really a threat from a hardware manufacturer or so, but from NiceHash it is a threat because someone
Easily.
can buy a large amount of hash power for a short period of time for little money and can take some coin.
Yeah.
So, but if you're a hardware manufacturer and you want to attack a coin where you bought miners for, of course, this coin will lose value. So you will think twice about attacking this
Exactly,
coin.
you're attacking yourself current
Gains are
in a
less,
part, yeah.
than the losses, you won't do it. So I don't think, for example, for Bitcoin that 51% attacks are a great threat.
Didn't ETC get recently get a 51% attack through NiceHash? Yeah, and there was like, was it $500,000 that was stolen or something from some exchange?
I think it was more and the cost was way less.
And the price did not drop. The market price just didn't react. No one cared, basically. Did they roll back?
No.
They didn't roll back. Yeah, so actually no one cares. So, I mean, yeah, exactly. I think it also happened to some other coins. I'm trying to remember which ones it was, but they just didn't lose value. So I don't know. Everyone talks about this 51% attack, but in the end, people don't really care. Yeah, I guess so.
The problem with Bitcoin is only people in shitcoins who don't understand the basics, so they don't care about stuff like this.
Yeah, I think so too. I guess if Bitcoin got 51% attacked, it would get quite serious. Then again, Bitcoin did have easily over 50% of hash rate in the hands of one person, Bitmain, because they owned the 3 largest mining pools, and it was worse 1 or 2 years ago.
Probably they still have, no?
I didn't check the charts lately. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised. It was like this, definitely. Yeah, they had, Antpool, BTC.com.
20 years it was like this.
Yeah, it was so they easily had over 50%. And actually, you know what? They did try to be evil, and they tried to fork the network and do their own thing, Bitcoin Cash. And, well, we'll call it evil. I mean, they're right, they can try. My people... Well, no, not, they switched a lot of hash rate in the beginning over to it.
It was a 51% attack on voting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. No, didn't they do it without replay protection?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is an attack.
But the transactions are still valid on the Bitcoin chain.
Mm.
You can use
Okay.
Bitcoins.
Okay, but you can't use your cash.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So what about ASIC friendliness? So going into the opposite direction
Exactly.
and choosing algorithms that are intentionally easy to implement in hardware?
I think it's really interesting. And the value that it would be in the long term, I guess, nothing. But in the short term, it would really speed up that adoption process of ASICs and the commoditization of ASICs in the short term.
Is there something more ASIC friendly than SHA?
Cycle, for example,
It's not really ASIC friendly.
it's intentionally easy to
No,
implement.
it's not easy to implement. It's just simple, but not easy to implement.
Yeah, but easier than other.
Not easier than Bitcoin.
Kashak is the easiest.
KKAK is the same as SHA-3, right? That's one I heard discussed several times from the Cash Monero. I forgot.
Argument, as I understand it, is to make verification cheaper relative to solving. So with Bitcoin,
All right.
trying to solve a block is exactly as much work than verifying the block. If you go more in the ASIC resistant direction, then verifying a block is more expensive than trying to solve a block. Which
Oh, wait, if you mean solve a block is mine a block, then...
so trying one attempt to solve a block is easier than verifying
Awesome.
a block.
Yeah, but still.
So basically all the non-mining nodes have a lot more
This
to
argument
do to
is
verify the
bullshit
chain.
because verifying a grid block is the exact same work as for Bitcoin.
No, with Bitcoin.
No, you have to do Blake hash. And okay, it's
The
less
Blake hash
complex.
is a small amount of the work. So verifying a grid block is super fast, but trying to solve a
Yeah, but this argument makes no sense.
But this is the direction they go with CocoCycle. They make verifying blocks super cheap in comparison to solving a block.
Yeah, the problem
To basically enable non-mining nodes to verify long chains without special hardware.
you can verify long chains of Bitcoin. Even
And
without.
with Bitcoin, it's the same work.
So it's the same work.
Verifying is exactly the same work.
Yeah, but verifying is the same work as for Grin.
With Grin, you have to search the whole graph to try one attempt to solve it. And verifying it, you
Just make solving more difficult, but you don't make verifying more easy.
Yeah.
Verifying is super easy. Just follow 42 edges.
But it's not easier than Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's super fast.
It's not easier.
It's easier relative to solve.
Yeah, but that's not interesting. It's not
But
interesting.
still,
Yeah, it's an interesting property if you want
Bitcoin
to
you just
verify
increase
long chain
difficulty.
in a mobile phone.
so in Bitcoin you just increase difficulty, so you have
Yeah,
to
but
say.
then it's more expensive on a mobile phone to verify.
No, it's not.
Okay, yeah, that's just.
You have to do this all
You
the
have,
hashes.
yeah, you have to calculate the hash.
Yeah, and with CocoCycle it's much faster to
No, it's
verify
not.
than to solve.
It is.
Okay, guys, I think you need a whiteboard.
It's just so many times. No, it's not right.
You are wrong.
No. I'm at the balls.
Okay, let's take this.
Okay, I'd say I'll continue with my presentation, but I still don't have a presentation, I'm still just rambling. So, I don't know, are there any more questions or some topics about mining something?
What about the energy mix?
Oh, that's a good question. That's all about the environment-friendly mining and which type of energy and...
Yeah, yesterday we learned like Bitcoin consumes, or was it 14 megatons? Oh, it produces a carbon footprint of 14 megatons.
Yeah, especially when the mines burn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's a very good topic. It's a very good. Thanks for bringing it up. It's a very good topic. I think this is really good news that people also don't like to believe because everyone likes to think, oh, high energy usage means high pollution, and that's generally completely right. Because usually you don't choose where your energy comes from, you just use it, and then whatever you did, you already did, and the carbon is in the air, and all the other bad stuff. I think Bitcoin mining is really interesting. So we're talking here about people are not trying to pollute the environment as much as possible. Let's say from an extreme standpoint, as a Bitcoin miner who's trying to build something as efficient as possible, you just don't really care about the environment, that's all. That's kind of the worst thing. You're not doing actively something against it. You're just choosing the best power price that you can get. Where's the best power price you can get? I'm telling you, it's not digging stones out of the ground, burning them at, what is it, 80 or 70% efficiency, and then converting that to steam, then turning a turbine, then turning a generator, and then sending it for 1,000 kilometers over an overhead line. No, it's hydro. Most mining happens in hydro plants. And the mining that doesn't happen in hydro plants is more expensive than when it happens in a hydro plant. There's some other special factors that can be, like maybe in some location you have very cheap labor, and so you're saving lots of labor costs or something like this, or there's some special deal and there's some special free coal being given out as an incentive by the government to increase industry usage of their region or something like this, okay? But in general, coal and oil and gas are more expensive than actually all renewables. This is more or less public information, it's completely fine. Hydro is in the range of 1 to 2 cents per kilowatt hour. Just raw hydro. Of course, there's cost on top and network, all kinds of stuff, but just for comparison, hydro is 1 to 2 cents. Wind is 2 to 3 cents. Solar is 2.5 to 3 cents. Coal is 3.5 and higher. Gas is at 3 to 4. You're always going to be cheaper with hydro, at least in the long run, when all these special incentives or these special kind of things, when we don't look at them, you're always mining somewhere where you have constant power and cheap power, and that's hydro. So all the places in the world where we have cheap hydro, for example, the most known region for Bitcoin mining is the Sichuan mountains in China. They mine there on top of some mountain. They've got people going up the hills with 2 S9 miners in their backpack. They actually do this. And they do all of this because they've got very cheap hydropower up there when all the snow melts. Other regions, like in Iceland, like Genesis Mining has a big standpoint in Iceland. It's geothermal. It's basically a volcano, the whole island, right? It's made of lava. So it's kind of free energy coming out, more or less.
How much costs geothermal energy?
Geothermal is a bit more expensive, but you're in the under 5 cent range. And then you've got the Genesis mining is also in Sweden, for example. In northern Sweden, lots of hydro up there. They've got like a river going through the country like this, and they've dammed it 15 times, and every hydro dam produces way more energy than it can even use. They use the water not all for energy, but they use it to irrigate their plains and to for their what do you call it, Landwirtschaft. So, and the same in America, by the way. They've got the Colorado River going down the side. The Colorado River going to the side is dammed 15 times, and every single dam would be enough for several exahash of Bitcoin hash rate. It's just not used because they built this for farming and they didn't build it for hydro. They just let the water flow through the dam without actually putting in turbines. We're just waiting for people to just put in a turbine and sell the power. So the way I see it...
So they're wasting energy?
Absolutely, yeah. Without polluting anything, all right, but they're wasting it completely. And this is just going to get better. We're in a, how do I say, we're in an extremely global competitive market. The best guy always will outcompete the guy that's in the back end of the efficiency. Because everyone is always trying to scale up. If they're profitable, they try to scale up. And if you scale up, you're automatically reducing the mining reward for everyone who's not scaling up. So the ones also, the distribution always goes more and more in the direction of the people that have the lowest power, and the people who have the most expensive power, one by one, just drop off in an equilibrium, right, where the price stays the same and difficulty stays the same. In a mining hype, everything goes crazy. But if we're talking about the long run, about an equilibrium, it'll get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and the regions around the world which are the cheapest power will win. So there's a clear economic incentive, and that's the best incentive that's possible, to take renewable energies. One more quick point, because I just noticed it. Also wind power and solar power, which causes huge electrical spikes in the electrical grids, and they do huge amount of efforts to try to balance this out with spinning up coal power plants, spinning up natural gas power plants to compensate these spikes, like in the evenings, when the evenings there's lots of wind, and during the days there's lots of sun. You always have to even out the gaps, and if the spikes are too high, you just have to put the energy back in the ground, you just put a cable in the ground, you just earth it. All of this stuff that's happening, this can be balanced with Bitcoin mining, because it doesn't need to be up 24/7. You can put a couple of miners there, turn them on when it's really profitable, turn them off when it's not.
Skeptics say that this is not profitable if you have.
Yeah. This was the argument.
Yeah.
This was the argument yesterday that it would be nice if it worked like this, but in the global race for Bitcoin mining, you will only get your return on investment if it's 24 online and running. So
do you think 23.5 hours a day is okay?
No, I don't know, but the argument, I'm just
I'm trying to make it counter.
Yesterday was that it can't be 100% of renewables because they don't have a predictable, stable energy.
It's fair enough. My counter argument would be how high would it need to be? How close would it need to be to 24? Because I think we could easily just agree that 23.5 hours a day is going to be fine. So what about 23 hours?
But wouldn't a miner then for the other half hour of the day, say instead of shutting it down, I do it with coal? Because that's still better than...
Well, you can easily do the calculation at any point in time. What's my current expected US dollar revenue per mining hour, let's say, right? So if I leave this miner running for an hour, how many US dollars is it going to generate me? You can do this calculation at any point in time. You also always know how many kilowatt hours is it going to use in this time, and what's the cost. Why would you mine if it's negative?
Because if you don't mine, it still ages, the hardware ages.
But if you leave it on, you're losing power. You're losing money. So every second that you don't unplug it, you're losing money. So you just unplug it. Easy.
I think the aging is less and less more important because in the beginning you know better. A miner is kind of worthless some months later, but now that we reach the end of the law for mining, basically they can run much longer. So that argument is, I think, losing.
But there was
to this, is this true? Or?
It's absolutely true. I mean, the S9 miner just had its 3rd birthday. It's a very sad day. Hate that thing. Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, we're going to see longer and longer lifetimes of machines.
Just one aspect with regard to the more efficient mining. So it's obvious that the more profitable miners will win, and if you can mine at 2 cents a kilowatt hour, then
I don't think anyone can do that, by the way. That's like the raw production price.
let's just imagine we could.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, what I missed in your explanation there was, it's not so much the amount of energy that's used, but the money spent on the energy. So it depends on the Bitcoin price. If we can all mine at half the cost, we will just mine twice
exactly.
So we will still spend a lot of at least monetary resources on it, and they will end up somewhere polluting something. So if I can have if the building the dam costs a lot, but then I can use the dam for hydroelectric power, then it's basically for free. But then I would spend even more money in building more dams. So
right, yes, but you would spend more money on maybe not building dams, they're really expensive, but maybe building side dams, let's say. But at the same time, you would be increasing your hash rate, so you would have other people being dropping out. So this is not reducing the hash rate, definitely not. Probably even increasing.
No, it's increasing.
Sure, it's increasing or at least staying the same. The equilibrium needs to stay the same, right? But whatever, might increase. But anyway, the more inefficient miners are dropping out. And those are expected to be fossil fuels.
Yeah, but still, the total amount of paid effort, let's say, that's put into it, it just depends on the Bitcoin price. So if the Bitcoin price doubles, people will put more effort into it. So regardless how efficient they mine. So if they can build a windmill and cheaper, then they will just build 2, and then it's not so efficient in the end, as you might expect from just the numbers of the per kilowatt hour.
Okay, so what's the equation going to be? It's going to be something like, if the Bitcoin price stays stable and the difficulty, if the Bitcoin price stays stable, then the difficulty is going to rise and rise and rise until the point where the average power consumption of everyone times the kilowatt hours being put in equals the mining reward that the network generates every day. The margin is going to get closer and closer and closer. It'll reach more or less zero, right? Right. And then if the Bitcoin price goes up, of course, it has to readjust again. Let's just leave that out for now. So if we're in this, let's say we're in this equilibrium where price is not changing anymore, the Bitcoin price isn't changing, and the hash rate has gone up to the level where everyone can just support each other, and everyone's just running at almost no margin. Then the average person has got almost no margin. Then you'll have some running at negative margin, and you'll have some running at positive margin, because not everyone has the same efficiency. So still in that equilibrium, without the hash rate actually changing too much, you'll have people building up more at the cheaper capacities, and people that are not running profitably just turning off. So you still have the market adjusting towards the cheaper side of electricity, even without the hash rate
My
increase.
point is from a local view, for the individual miner, you're getting more and more efficient. But in total, it's compensated by the fact that it's not the efficiency that counts in total, because if there's how many, I think it used to be 2 or 4 billion worth of Bitcoin mined each year.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think
Could be true, yeah.
something
Makes sense.
$4 billion. Then that's the amount of money that will be put into mining. And
Sure.
so
Okay, now I understand. So you're moving the argument from the CO2 pollution to general electricity usage and resource being put into mining. Yeah, I agree, absolutely. The resource being put into mining, they're always going to try the ROI, and they'll be compared in some calculation with the amount of Bitcoin generated, so the new value created. Absolutely. Yeah. Makes sense.
So you can use much less energy if you make energy more expensive, right? If everywhere energy would be tenfold, then Bitcoin would
Exactly.
use
Then,
a tenth of the energy, right?
or it might go up tenfold in the price. Let's not assume that. Yeah, but of course that never happens. But yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Unless there's no more abundant energy and people have to make a decision if they rather want to have their personal life running or Bitcoin mining instead.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but energy is available in an abundant way. It's just a question of how to harness it, right? So
yeah.
I mean, there's energy everywhere. Just
Yeah,
even
in
here,
general,
even
yeah.
without electricity.
That's another good argument that was made in Iceland. I was in Iceland there talking to some people and like meeting people and doing our things with our mining operation there. And these people, there was this big news article coming up at the time, and the big headline was Bitcoin mining. In Iceland, I can get it translated. Bitcoin mining now uses more energy in Iceland than all private households combined. And it started a debate. It was serious. And it was true, by the way. It was true. I did numbers. Bitcoin mining was using around 60 megawatts, and private households like 55. Yes. So Bitcoin mining was using more power than private households.
How many households are there?
There's 400,000 people living there, so it's kind of small, but they're passionate people. They're passionate, and when they start arguing something, they'll hit the town square, and then the president also comes, and they all start talking about what's going on in the big town square. It's serious. Yeah. It's like a small town. It's all come. It was quite fun. What they didn't talk about so much was that the aluminium smelters are using several gigawatts. But, you know, that's not new, so just, yeah, okay, it doesn't matter. And the silicon factory that they built also new. I think it was using 200 megawatts at the time. But, you know, still, Bitcoin mining was the new big thing, and they talked about how it's stealing their resources and it's destroying their nature and all of this stuff. And it died down a bit, but there were actually calls on the parliament to ban Bitcoin mining because it's destroying their nature and destroying their country. I didn't get involved, but I don't know. It didn't seem to me like the biggest actual concern. It seemed a bit more manufactured. Because in the end, Bitcoin mining usually doesn't use the power that people want. I've never seen Bitcoin mining compete with private households. Bitcoin mining has never ever raised the price anywhere. If you build a mining farm and they raise the price, you demolish the mining farm and you move to a different place, right? Because otherwise you made the calculation with that price. So usually mining farms are under remote locations, close to power sources, so you don't have so much transmission going on, away from people, so the land is cheap, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. So usually mining farms are not where you would see them, but they're more like invisible. And using the power that would not otherwise be used. If they would be competing with other people with power, like with private households, they would be pushing the price up. Bitcoin miners really don't want that. So, I don't see too much of an issue.
There is a completely other possibility to make mining without pushing the price up. You said energy is everywhere. Everywhere where it's right now, heat is produced. I don't know, France produces 70% of their home heating by electricity, and because of Canada.
Oh, yeah?
Because there's this nuclear, and they need to whatever. So there's a lot of places in the world where heat is converted, electricity is converted to heat to nuisance. So how do
I love this.
think of whether the kind of spiral that just produces heat up, electricity is replaced by sunlight?
I would love that so much. It would be so cool. It would be actually, I mean, even if the chip was like so unprofitable that the Bitcoin rewards are zero, it's still not worse than in the school, unless it might break or something. Okay, but let's just forget that. Let's say you build it in a really nice way. I love the idea. I think it's really cool. We'll probably drive up we're talking about the heater in the wall, right? Let's say we're talking about a higher purchase price, that's a higher capex, but then you have lower operational costs. Let's assume that it can't compete with the big mining data centers somewhere in Iceland, right? So it'll probably be running unprofitably, so you can't run it with a profit, but you can run it with less cost. It'll be compensating some of the cost. And just that saving in cost over a while would need to compensate the higher purchase price. Because of course chips cost more than in the school.
Could make a business case of it. So
I love the idea.
Buying an electric heater in the local store for, I don't know, what does it cost, 30 euro or something? Things like that. There is 10 euro, but you need to be on Wi-Fi. I think a lot of people would just they have no idea that they're Bitcoin mining, they don't care. But
Bitmain did that with the router.
Sorry?
Bitmain did that with the router.
Ideas like this actually.
But I think the router actually solar mines, so it's more like a lottery. So you buy a router for whatever, $100, it's mining, it's getting hot, and once in 100 lifetimes you find 50 Bitcoin.
But that's the interesting thing if it's built to get hot. Your point.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's really, really nice. you'll always be competing with the others that are doing economics of scale, so it might become so unprofitable that the much higher purchase price of it might never be worth it. Still, it's a valid business case. It really makes sense. And people have made this on a large scale too.
There's a huge price gap. As an iPhone costs about $3,000, and the cheap heater costs $30. I see a factor of 100. Can't compensate that.
I see a factor of 10. Okay. A Bitcoin S9 costs around $300. It was 120 when the price was so low. Their price depending on their profitability, not about their actual cost. But anyway, I think it's a very valid business case, and it's great to think about it, and I think it's actually worth it to actually do calculation.
Yeah. But by the way, yesterday we heard that if the price rises, like for example, above 200 to 500,000 per Bitcoin, the incentives might be so high that it might be attractive for miners to invest into research on alternative energy sources, for example, fusion energy, and I mean this would be of course like massive for whole humanity if we could break the problems of fusion energy and stuff like this. But what's your take on that?
Fusion energy.
Ooh. Yeah, no, the incentivation to put more money into research here from the mining industry.
I think it could be, but I currently don't see the usual mindset of the mining community to be like this. I think it's more about using existing technologies and actually doing research development to break them down to what the core that they actually need, and to remove all the fluff, and to just use the bare metal, what you actually need to get the job done. Because it's all about lowering the cost. The only thing you're competing with is your cost of producing Bitcoin. So as soon as you have any overheads, you better have a really good reason for it. And these long-term investments into long-term projects, like say Fusion is definitely a decade-long project. I don't think any Bitcoin company can plan this far. And I'm not even talking about just Bitcoin mining, even like Bitcoin and a wallet provider or something. Because the technology is expected to change so much, and then there's so much going to be happening that you just don't know what's going to. You don't know what state you're going to be at that time frame. So I think people in the mining space are looking for more short-term solutions. I'd be a bit more pessimistic there, sorry.
And I wonder if they ever try to use the heat that is produced with the mining computers.
Yeah.
Because that would be a short-term thing.
We're working on that, actually. We're working on that. It would be, it's so sad, right? Because usually Bitcoin miners are air-cooled. So the cold air coming in, hot air going out, that's it. And then you've got lots of hot air. There's difficulties. There are these ideas for how to convert hot air into electricity, right? But you more Bitcoin, you just feed it back in. Yeah. No, but the problem is that these things usually need high temperatures. But what's coming out of the Bitcoin mine is like 40 degrees or something. And 40 degrees is really difficult to use properly. There's things called heat pumps, where you can heat up some water with the miner, and then you pump up the temperature of the water. It actually works. But then that pump uses more power than you actually get out of the end. It's difficult. It's difficult. We're doing some interesting ideas about heating up greenhouses, for example. Other people, this is actually a fun fact, many people who joined Bitcoin mining a couple of years ago, now it's more data center people coming in. But the people who used to come in was the weed growers growing marijuana, because they said they were called cooling experts because they have these very hot lights lighting up the plants, and they had experience building these warehouses with electrical infrastructure and cooling the whole thing. So those people came into, unfortunately, it's more about removing the heat than actually using the heat. One really interesting idea, though, I saw this in Scandinavia, is that they have a data center spot. Data center provider who says, hey, people come here, we'll do data center here, and they offer and they require from you that you have water cooling system, and they give you a serious discount on the electricity price if you put the hot water that comes out of your operation into the central heating system, the hot water pipe system of was it Oslo or something, I forgot. Some of the cities. It's really, really cool, actually. The idea is to have this heater idea where you're powering your heater with electricity, but in the large scale, right? So you have a big heat pipe system, which you have everywhere in the Nordic countries anyway. And you just connect a big data center to it, and it heats it up. Unfortunately, still it's not worth putting in water cooling into each other. Still a good idea.
Are you active in populating unused hydro dams as well?
The problem is that they are, if they're unused, then you mean underutilized, then they're usually underutilized for long, especially when there's Bitcoin miners around. And the other thing is, if you want to upgrade a dam, dams are always like national security infrastructure projects, so there's always the government involved, all the different agencies are all involved with this usually a very important thing, like a 100-year project built for local agriculture, so building a dam, like I said, it's a 100-year project. So you can't build a dam unless you're a government, actually. Because there's no private companies that think in these scales.
Simply placing a turbine into an already existing dam is...
Well, if they've got an open spot, I guess it would be possible, yeah. I don't have any specifics on that. It should be possible if you find one. You probably wouldn't be the first to write the man's letter. Yeah. And we saw in 2017, the last hype, we saw all the power companies, power providers, data center hosting providers, they got so much spam from Bitcoin miners just trying to put their miners anywhere because it was profitable, so extremely profitable, no price mattered, that their emails got so spammed that they just had to deactivate their email account and create a new one and not put it on the website. People were not answering calls anymore because the telephone ring that put on mute. They just didn't know what to do anymore. These people are used to 1 or 2 inquiries a month of something of high-level business, and they do a negotiation. And then there's some crazy Bitcoin heads talk to them about putting in their 100 kilowatts of miners. Every single place that has any amount of power got so spammed that actually many of them just stopped doing business with Bitcoin miners altogether. In Quebec, they raised the power price 10 times up because by law they're not allowed to not sell electricity. They always have to sell electricity, so they're all right. It's on 5 cents, it's on 50 cents per kilowatt hour. Just to get rid of all the people giving them the phone calls. Anything else? Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you, Philip.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. Thanks for coming. And I say let's switch over to the informal part. Thanks again.